On this episode of Narcissist Apocalypse, we talk with an abuse survivor named Rose, and Rose was engaged to a belittling con man. It's a story of an abusive childhood, shame, moving goalposts, financial control, threats, self blame, and wanting the family you never had. Welcome to Narcissist Apocalypse, everyone. I am Brandon Chadwick, and with me today we have Rose. How are you?
I'm good, Brandon. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. And if you want to be a guest like Rose is today, please do go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. Click on the guest form button at the top of the page or email us at narcissistapocalypse@pm.me. Also, join our newsletter on our website at narcissistapocalypse.com. We have started a newsletter. Inside, you get a free workbook from this episode. So far, people have found our workbooks helpful. It's a valuable tool in understanding what has happened in your relationship, and it is free. So go to our website. On the front page, there should be a newsletter sign up at narcissistapocalypse.com. And this episode does have a content warning as we do discuss child sexual abuse, physical abuse, sexual coercion, and suicidal ideation in this episode. And today you'll hear Rose's story. And Rose's story isn't just a relationship story, it's her life story. And her family will really lurk throughout all aspects of her life. So they pop back in and out during her story today. And even when they are not there, they are there. And Rose was always looking for the family she never had growing up, and she was made to feel less than. And this dynamic became prevalent in her engagement to an abuser. And once he took her shame that she had already and twisted it, the power dynamic really shifted in his favor. And the less than feeling in the dynamics really took over while Rose took whatever breadcrumbs she could get with lots of dangling carrots and moving goalposts. So many of you out there today will be validated by Rose's story, and I can't thank her enough for being here with us today. And now I'm going to get out of my way and your way. Rose, the floor is now yours.
Okay, thank you for having me. Like many of your listeners have said that your podcast has really helped with, validating my experience. And yeah, I've listened to probably every episode that you have. And as you can hear from my accent, born and raised in Australia. My parents, mum was raised in Argentina. So she was born in Italy, raised in Argentina. From what I know, it was a very, yeah, isolated, strict upbringing as well, told where to go, who to be, what to do. And then dad sort of come along and seen a photo of her once he was already living in Australia, flew over and yeah, married mum very quickly within 3 months and brought her back to Australia. They were quite older when they had us children. Mum was a stay-at-home wife. Dad was a self-employed builder and farmer, worked a lot. My dad was a very tough man. So, yeah, popped out the kids very, very quickly. We're only 3 years apart. And it's sort of taken me a while to really understand my mum. I was so, call it, distracted with my father and his closed offness and his coldness, and trying to work him out for a very long time. And I had, yeah, I guess we call it daddy issues. That mum got overlooked for a very, very long time. Dad now passed away 10 years ago. And I think from there, I've really unearthed everything about my mum, and have really tried to understand her in the last 10 years and played back everything, and really understood she was, yeah, at the back of everything that went wrong, every abuse, everything. It was really my mum behind it all. I realized the isolation in the family was her. She didn't like anyone. Dad was quite sort of friendly and charming. He worked a lot, but he was still had that spunk in him. But mum, yeah, just thought everyone was against her and us, and one by one, everyone left. So yeah, and I saw his spirit sort of break throughout my whole life, and I think she really just made it difficult. And I think it was just easier to be quieter and, yeah, just not have people around to make it a little bit easier, which is how sort of all the abuse that happened in the house sort of got as far as it did and as long as it did, because there was no witnesses and no one to know what was going on. I have an older brother and a older sister who is like on the spectrum. She is autistic, and so my brother did unfortunately sexually abuse me from the age of 7 up until I left home around the age of 20. So that's obviously been a big part of my life. So yeah, the abuse started at 7, so he would have been about 10. I went immediately to my mother when that happened, and my mother immediately dismissed it as child's play. That didn't happen, and didn't want to hear about it. That right there is where everything changed. It was literally in that moment where he's like, I got away with this and I can continue this. And it did. And it was a constant. And in that moment as well, it was, I knew I didn't have a protector in my mum or my dad. My dad was told of it, but he certainly turned a blind eye. And it wasn't, yeah, I think my father just didn't want to know. And he knew he needed his son to take over the family business eventually. And I basically became a scapegoat. Still don't understand why that wasn't something they could have just nipped in the butt and, sat him down and I don't know, sorted out. But instead, everyone chose to deny and turn a blind eye. From there, I was a different kid, and yeah, sort of just lost my mum as well as my brother at the same time. So I stopped seeing my mum as a mum and being babied by my mum, and sort of like became quite tough from that sort of age. So brother became golden child, sister got sort of the baby. She's already autistic, she's already in need of more care. So then I was sort of left to sort of fend for herself in that household. And my mum then pitted my sister against me. So all that sort of helped with me being quite isolated. Um, yeah, dad turning a blind eye, mum not wanting to know the truth, and sister sort of just stepping out at that point.
And as far as how you're feeling and how you're viewing everything, obviously you don't trust your mom anymore. Trust has been eroded in the household. This house is a bit of a minefield as far as what you're going to get on a certain day. You're pitted against your sister, as you said. So, what are your daily things that you're just trying to avoid in the minefield when it comes to your mom or your dad, as far as being yelled at? Like, what's happening there?
I guess we'll start with it was a family violent situation as well. Everyone talked with their fists instead of their mouths. So yeah, unfortunately there was family violence on every part as well. So dad was scary. I forever still wanted to please my father and have him show some affection. So I sort of went down the route of, let me hide the abuse from him so he doesn't see me differently, and he could, I'm not making things too difficult, and possibly I'll start to get some attention and affection from him. Mum, I continued to always run to her and tell her, to no point, because she never once ever 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 defended me. And then I had to sort of physically defend myself and do a lot of things that kids shouldn't need to do in their own homes, and barricade my room, and yeah, sort of always think ahead on how where he would be, don't be alone with him, and that sort of stuff. But also, unfortunately, weirdly, he became my biggest ally as well as my biggest enemy. So yeah, unfortunately, my mum sort of really played this game of, you aren't allowed to leave the house, you're not allowed to go do anything without your biggest brother, being there and having you whenever you're out of the house. So it's like I had to almost cop the abuse, because I'm going to get abused in another way anyway. So I did always fight back on the abuse, but it always came with another punishment. So it was usually a cycle of, he tried to abuse me, I would lock myself up and I wouldn't talk to him. But then I needed to talk to him to be able to leave the house, or have someone to play with. So he really had such a powerful spot in the family very young. He recognized, like I said, from very young, that he was the one who will be taking over the family business, and will be the next one down. And he was just adored and obsessed by my mum.
So at a very young age here, his power and abuse and control is going completely unchecked.
Unchecked. Absolutely, completely.
So for you, as far as having a escape from all of this, do you eventually have friends? Like, what starts happening with, like, I guess, school and all of those things? How do you react to all of these things? Do you become an achiever? What does your life kind of take a shape of as these things are happening at the age of, let's say, 10 plus?
Certainly people pleaser, but at the same time keeping myself as small and unseen as possible. I was, and to this day, never stop trying to gain my parents' love. So therefore, try to be the smartest and the quickest and the brightest in everything I did to try and gain their love, and also not try to make the abuse into a big deal, and try to take that on the best I could, and defend myself the best I could. So I wasn't a headache in the house. I did change as a child. I am naturally a bubbly, happy person, but I just became so in my shell, very, very shy. I'm very much a one-on-one type of person. So I had that one friend from sort of the age of 7, who I, of course, would never know, that she never knew what was going on. And also I knew from the minute that the abuse happened that no one will ever know. And I'll do everything in my power that no one will ever guess that this is happening to me. And I played that very well, that it's come to bite me in my adult life, because it's just very hard for people to understand. Yeah, the girl who hit it so perfectly, how could this possibly be happening to her? At the same time, I also did pretend to everyone that I had the greatest brother, big brother in the world. And we seemed very close in public. I never touched him ever, never, ever allowed him to come near me, but we were very close and we did everything together. So that's very confusing at the same time.
And what did you dream of when you were this age? Are you just kind of dreaming to escape one day, like just get out of there? Like, do you have a plan in your head that you want to be something, or is it just like, I need to get out of here?
Yeah. So it was always in fight mode, flight, fight mode, completely and utterly. So it's very sad for a 7-year-old to sit there going, I need to get out of here one day. And how am I going to do that? So, up until the age of me being able to work, so age of 14, was just avoid the abuse the best I can, and fight this the best I can, and manage everyone in the family the best I can. And then from the age of 14, it was, what do I need to do to be able to get out of here once I turn a legal age? So it was working as much as I could, which was the only thing I was allowed to do outside of going to school. So my parents, like I said, so strict. I wasn't allowed to go to parties. I wasn't allowed to even go to school excursions. I worked as much as I could. I read books and locked myself in the room the times that I was home. I really, really just isolated myself and stuck to myself and read and daydreamed and planned my escape, which really revolves around finding love and having a family and making up for what's happened to me and seeing this world and traveling.
So, things that have occurred so far: sexual abuse, physical abuse, gaslighting, minimization of your experience. You've been scapegoated. You've been pitted against your sister. You have made yourself small. You were trying to achieve to get love. You were being forced to be aligned with your sexual abuser. There is shame created. There is isolation, gaslighting. You desperately want to be seen. You're hyper vigilant of situations and other people's moods. You can be attentive to these things. You're trying not to rock the boat. Your needs are not being met at all. Your mom's dismissive. There's no trust. And the thing you want most in life, it sounds like, is to be seen and to want a family that you never had. And this is all before the age of 15. And then at 15, you do meet someone who is part of the story, but not the main abuser that we'll be talking about, but it is still significant. So tell us about this first relationship where you meet them at 15, even though you don't start dating for a few years.
So I met him at 15. Didn't really think too much about him. Everyone knew he had the biggest crush on me. He pursued me for 5 years. So around the age of 19 is when we started to see each other secretly because I wasn't allowed to date. So I was working at the time. So we would sort of sneak around and see each other during my work hours and start a relationship that way. Within sort of 6 months, I did sort of fall for him, and I was extremely inexperienced. He was my first, everything. And yeah, I didn't have male friends. I didn't understand anything about the opposite sex. So to me, I was like, this guy is obsessed with me. He loves me. I guess he was my escape. I didn't think of it at the time, but he certainly was my escape, and he was my motivation to leave home just right after my 20th birthday. But very quickly after I left home, the signs were there immediately of he had a huge temper, short fuse, which I never saw because we didn't date properly. But I had already made the choice to leave home. I initially thought my family were going to disown me, and they did when that happened, when I left and picked him and chose him because they found out about him and gave me an ultimatum, and I chose him and I left, and we moved in together straight away. And it was just immediate control, went straight into one home of isolation and abuse and being told what to do, to a roof under our roof of him doing the exact same thing. He was completely obsessed with me, and I guess I saw that as a cute thing, but yeah, really sort of seeing how unhealthy that was. I was the one who, obviously saved my money and everything. I had enough to put a down deposit on a home and that sort of stuff, which is what we did. So we bought a home funded basically by me with the deposit and the furniture and whatnot. But his name was equally put onto the title of that home, and we lived together, although I desperately did not want to do that. But I did do that because I didn't have a voice, and I just went along with all of that. It was all his rules. It was his way or no way. He started to really pick on anyone who was in my life and didn't like any of my friends. So therefore, they weren't allowed to come to the home. So I would see them outside of my home, never with him. He very much told me, he spoke for me. I did not have a voice. I did not have a voice at all or a personality. It was, I had to look the way he wanted me to look, never change my hair color or my hairstyle, dress the way he wanted me to dress, and just think for me, which his family did recognize and did try to defend me. they loved us. His family was so good to me, which is how I stayed as long as I did, which was up to an 8-year relationship. And I stayed as long as I did because they were so loving to me, and so good to me. And I finally had that family that I wanted. He did notice quite soon, maybe a year and a half, 2 years into the relationship, that I had yet weird behaviors. I had chronic, nightmares, and you couldn't come at me from behind. I would jump a lot. I was suffering a lot from the abuse that I kept hidden. My brother was still in my life. So I did think, like I said, I was never going to see anyone ever again. But he was the only normal, and I use that word loosely, the only normal one in the family. So I kept him still close. And he was the only one who came around to the family barbecues and these sort of things. Because mum was still quite isolated at home. She didn't drive. Dad did disown me and didn't speak to me at all. And it was a slow burn to have my ex gain his acceptance, and he did. And then he did, and my father did end up loving my ex. So when that happened, when that all came together, and my parents accepted this relationship and adored him, I was stuck. So it didn't help that my brother had this unspoken understanding that this was going to be a secret as well. And he is uber charming. Like, I haven't really spoken about his personality, but he's a chameleon, and he doesn't matter who he's around, he will be whoever he's speaking to. So everyone did adore my brother, and my ex's family loved him, adored him. But I was really struggling with his presence still being around, and the fact that I finally have given myself my own home, my own security, yet my abuser is still hanging around, and I'm still pretending. The pretending really, really was affecting me to the point of, like I said, my body couldn't sort of hold it in anymore. And my ex did actually guess the abuse, because my reactions towards my brother, and my body would turn red, and I would just freeze up and all these sort of things. He just guessed that something had happened to me. So then that sort of bonded us as well. Once he found out and once he knew this happened to me, I felt like, God, this person still loves me even after he knows what's happened to me, because I did feel dirty still up in that point of what happened to me, and no one's going to love me. And if anyone did, they'll leave me, but he still loved me. So that was just another layer there.
So here you are in this long-term relationship, and this isn't the main story that we're going to be talking about, but so far in your life, you're dealing with your family abuse, physical, mental, sexual abuse from your brother, your dad, your mom, your sister. And now you're in this relationship. It is immediately controlling, a lot of anger, outbursts, all these things are going on. You're isolated in this relationship. You have no autonomy of, as far as like, being told what to do all the time. And this person is valuing you kind of like a trophy. And now, littered throughout all of this still is your family. Your family's very involved in this in one way or the other. And the other is that you're in this relationship and staying in it because of his family in a long way. That's keeping you there longer, because you just always want what every kid deserved, which was a loving family. And it's something that you really want, and that your dream is to have kids in a family and to have that type of family. So even when they're not there, they are still there, if that makes sense. And they are now getting more involved after originally disowning you. And now that becomes an issue because now both abusers are aligned with each other. And that has to be very scary and unsettling because you're unable to escape it at this point. I think one saving grace in your mind could have been like, it's good that they don't like each other, but them as a unit together becomes a double whammy of power against you. And so, how does this relationship here end? And, is it clean? And then what happens with your family after you end this?
Yeah. We did get engaged. I wanted to say no. I said yes out of obligation. Engaged for 3 years, but it was such a unpassionate relationship on my side, and I just felt so suffocated and so small, and like I was never going to grow as long as I was with him, and I just couldn't do it anymore. It was more the thought of I really want children and I'm never going to have children with this person because I don't want him to touch me at all. And it was that made me finally call it with him at the age of 27. It was absolutely devastating. I broke up with his family actually before I broke up with him. So had a chat with the family first, and they actually were on board, and they adored me and loved me, didn't want me not to be in their lives, but actually wanted me to leave because they could see what he was doing to me. So that was, some comfort that I didn't feel like the enemy. Me and him, did pretend to still be together for about a year later because we were both afraid of what my parents would do and that I was going to lose my parents all over again. So I guess he used it as a way to just keep me there. And I accepted that because I didn't want to lose my parents. But I then meet the second partner who the second part of what my story is about, and the very abusive relationship. So that was from 27 onwards is when I met this one. So I was out on a girls' night, my first girls' night out, and trying to rebuild my life. It's still going through the separation with the first one because we had a home together and pets and whatnot. And this one was very obviously staring me down and just like devouring me with his eyes, which I was very uncomfortable about, and I was not into it. So I kept sort of avoiding eye contact, and he got in with my friend. So started talking to my friend and then introduced himself. From there, he just kept asking questions and questions and questions, and then ended up spending the whole night with him that first night when we met. From there, it was fast forward, love bombing, quick pace, didn't have a second to think. And it was just that big bang. I come from, a quite a passionless, sexless first relationship to this guy who just had all these stories, and he was just I describe it as a roller coaster. It was a roller coaster knowing him and being with him, and it didn't stop. It never stopped.
So, in hindsight, what did you know of his family, his role in it, how he became who he became, and then what he wanted from the world and how this relationship progressed from here?
He's the golden child. So a bit of background on him is, yeah, Greek family. There's 5 sisters and he's the only boy. Mum adores him and calls him and treats him like the baby, and as did the sisters. So because he was an only boy, he was just spoiled by all the women. And I believe that's the core of how he became who he was. He's obviously an egotistical person, thinks he's smarter than everyone in the room. He's got this thing of proving he made it. So they come from a humble background. His father, very humble man, has worked very hard for his family and has provided for his family, but in a quite a humble way. And my ex just had this thing about showing that he made it and proving to everyone that he made it. Um, and I think that's the only thing I can put down to how he became the way he was, because everyone else he was quite normal. So he was a lawyer. He had just graduated and was in his first job in law. And I wrapped things up with financially with my first partner, and I was buying my second property solo alone. He very, very, very quickly, firstly, was living with me in my rental, and then I bought my place. And he, out of nowhere, decided to quit his job. And he's like, I want to build my own firm, and quit his job. I was fully financially supporting him. He was living under my roof. I paid all the bills. I paid the mortgage. He never owned a car the whole from the moment we met. So I was the one sort of picking him up and driving him and doing date nights and whatnot. Very silly me, but I was again uber like ignorant. Again, only second man I ever even had an interaction with, and I've gone and done it all over again. But I did not know better. Only difference with this one is that was fun. It was fun. It was interesting. It was non-stop. I think what attracted me to him was he distracted me. I didn't have time to think about my childhood abuse and my parents and this failed, relationship, because it was just go, go, go with him. I lived in his world on his terms, and I was happy to do so because it was just such a whirlwind. He was, I don't know if you call him charming. He's a loving or hating type of guy. Very, very down the line, very honest in the way he spoke, which actually attracted me. A bit of a smartass, and once again, big Greek family who adored me and who treated me really good. And a big family and nieces and nephews, and I was auntie, and they really filled that spot for me again of of the love that I wanted. But there was red flags immediately with this one. He was playing the breakup game from week two and sabotaging from week two. I felt, once again, I made my commitment. I'm staying with this guy. I'm going to stick this out no matter what. And I really had that fairy tale in my head. I really only wanted to have the one partner, and I was like, okay, the one partner didn't work. Okay, maybe two, maybe it'll be two partners, and I'll be the good girl. And culture wise, I didn't want too many partners. I wanted to be seen as a wifey material and all that sort of stuff. So that really played its part to how I stayed as long as I did as well. And my father dies in this time. So we were dating for about 2.5, 3 years, and my family did not know about him. I did know in my gut that he was wrong, but I was trying to stick it out and waiting for him to just grow up a bit and treat me better before I introduced him to my family, because I didn't want them to go through another heartbreak of saying goodbye to another partner. But my father passes away. Before that, I do cut ties with my brother. So I saw my father deteriorating. I was really struggling with my mental health, with the abuse, and I cut the ties with my brother, and my father passes away shortly after that. That then brings him to meeting my family, because he comes to the funeral and his family comes to the funeral. I then introduce him as my boyfriend to my mum, and that sort of gets me stuck at that point. In between all of that, this guy is not loving. He has a high sex drive, which again was sort of exciting because I had such a loveless or passionless relationship the first time that was a hook for me. But at the same time, the guy did not compliment me in any way, did not build me up in any way, did not make me feel great. Never congratulated me on anything. Like when I bought the house, there was no taking me to dinner, congratulations, anything like that. When I got made redundant and got paid out, a nice little chunk that helped us out, there was never like, let's celebrate that or anything like this. And I really didn't understand everything that I was. And I really was that type that sought that confirmation from my partner. So I saw myself the way he spoke and treated me. And like I said, there was no congratulations, there was no tap on the back, there was no you achieved this, you're flowed in us, you're paying for everything. He never ever held my hand, put his arm around me. He never walked side by side, always walked ahead of me, always walked. I was always literally chasing after him. And the whole relationship was like that. In physically, I was always running after this guy. He just constantly made me feel small, unwanted, unattractive, unintelligent, everything. Just I was just so lucky to be with this lawyer. But I was going to say, very early on, so my first partner once we broke up, he did say to me, I recommend that you tell anyone that you're with your past sexual trauma or sexual abuse trauma. And that stuck with me. So I probably too quickly told this second one about the abuse, or I didn't even fully say it, but early on I said it, and his words were, "I knew you were too good to be true." So that really stuck with me, and that feeling that I've said before about feeling dirty and tainted, and who's going to love me for what's happened to me, he played right into that, and made me feel less than and made me feel like I am lower than him and you know tainted, and I should be so lucky to have someone who is a lawyer and whatever love me and that sort of stuff. So now I see that and I'm so disgusted in his words.
And that's the power dynamic shift that occurred, and boom, as soon as that happened, it was kind of over right there.
Yeah, it started laid the foundation. Yeah.
So this is the reversal right here. No matter what you think, you left your home and you were always capable. You created a life for yourself. You bought a home. You worked. You're a diligent worker. You're a good worker. That's the thing that you were always could kind of go to, is like you survive. You're a survivor. And in all aspects of those things, and you're able to take care of yourself. There isn't any learned helplessness. And then this character comes in here who wants to be everything that you are, and he makes you feel that you're less than, and then all of a sudden your history of how you feel about yourself, you become less than. He reinforces you being less than, but really you'll always be more than him, and he then uses everything that you have gained. And as we're going to hear, he's going to take that and run. And it's sad that you felt that way, and that you believed it, because it's so far from the truth. Because you had been surviving and doing and thriving in that aspect of your life, in that specific aspect, not the other ones, but in that specific aspect, you're a success. You're the real deal. And this person, he's a con.
Yeah, he knew he was doing that, as did honestly his family and everyone else. But then going back to when my father passes, he was supportive in that time. mind you, he had to tell everyone how supportive he was, and he took some time off work to be there for me and all that sort of stuff. And come my father's 1 month anniversary for his passing, I was, by the way, my father passed away in my arms, which was quite traumatic as well. So dad died in my arms with only him, my ex, in the room as well. So that again creates this sort of bond where he was the only one there who witnessed that. And so yeah, on my dad's 1 month anniversary, which is obviously going to bring some things up for me, my ex wanted sex, which I declined and said I just cannot do today. This is not a good day. I'm not doing well. And up until that point, have never said no to him ever. If I wanted to, not wanted to, doesn't matter. He got it when he wanted to. So I said no on this day, and yeah, he packed his stuff and left his key and took everything he had and blocked me and left me. So that was one of the most awful time you can ever go through, a heartbreak of losing a parent and then losing your partner all in one. So that was really hard. I didn't share that with anyone. I didn't tell anyone because I was so embarrassed. And we did get back together about a month later. So no one actually knew we broke up. I didn't tell my mum. I was so mortified.
So when you get back together here, this person has already, had his tentacles kind of move in with financial abuse type stuff going on. There's the charisma of him, and you say no to him and he leaves. Your dad has just passed away. Within that moment, like, are you devastated and want him back, even though being around him doesn't feel good sometimes, or could be getting worse? Or has this image of him really taken over as far as the charisma aspect of him taking your mind off of things? You're too busy to see what is going on as far as the fun times, and have enough bad times occurred for you to be repelled by him? Or are the good times and the excitement of him is kind of what's carrying you through to eventually get back together with him?
I think there was a few things there. It was I remember I just didn't have the capacity for just such another big loss to go through a breakup while I'm mourning my father. And I just couldn't deal with the heartbreak as well. And I just didn't want to be alone. I was living on my own, and I just felt so alone and then so ashamed to tell my mum or anyone that this failed again. And then I wasn't ready yet. I had that the rose-colored glasses were not off at this point. I recognized things weren't great, and he had some bad characteristics, but I really didn't understand how abusive he was at the time. It's taken years later to fully understand what he did to me, because remember, I've come from an abusive upbringing to an abusive first partner to another abusive partner. It's pretty normal for me. It's pretty normal, which is very, very sad to say. I had a high threshold of poor behavior in my life. So I was trying to like play it tough with 1 month of like no, 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 but still allowing him to try and grovel back. Yeah, and he did, a month later, which then sort of leads us to our makeup trip. I had already in that time planned I was going to Europe and see a friend who's overseas and do a trip with her. And when he's come back into my life, he's like, "Oh, well, I'm meeting you there. You have your couple of weeks with your girlfriend, and then I'm meeting you, and we're going to do a trip for the rest of the way." Now, he was on staff travel, if you know what that means. His sister worked for an airline and he got cheap flights. So he's met me overseas and I've organized everything. I've organized the trip, all the flights, all that sort of stuff. And Remember, this is supposed to be the makeup trip. So he's supposed to be making this up to me, making up the leaving me and abandoning me. And very, very quickly, he was back to his shitty self. And one of the flights, our luggage got lost, and that was all my fault. So, absolutely lost his complete cool with me. I was like just such garbage because I was stupid enough to have booked that flight, and that was all my fault. So, mind you, I was suffering from an ear infection in that travel, and had run out of medication, and I was in excruciating pain. And he is going at me, at me, at me, at me, at me, at me for hours. We go back to the hotel. I'm like, I need some sort of pain relief. I need medication. And he's like, wait, I need to eat first. Let's go eat first. So we go to one restaurant. He's eating, and I'm like, really need to get to a pharmacy. He's like, yeah, no, that meal was not good. Let's go to a second restaurant. So we go to a second restaurant for him to have his second meal. And in that time, all the pharmacies close. So then I've had to go back to the hotel and, like I said, really not well, feeling so sick. And he's still not talking to me and angry because our luggage is lost. And anyways, I go to the hospital the next day, get myself fixed. That's one part of the story. And then continuing on in the trips, there's many, many things that keep happening. The no to sex is a continuous topic in our, relationship. And no is just not an option. And I'm trying to sort of please him at this point and not rock the boat anymore and that sort of stuff. So I'm agreeable to everything. I was not working at the time. I had all the time in the world to travel, but he kept saying, I need to go back home at this certain date because I've got work to get back to. And I'm like, cool, whatever, all good. So booked the trip. So mind you, I had to book a 48-hour trip home to be able to get him those discounted flights. So I'm paying full way the whole way and catching the same flights as what he needs to have a discounted, travel on the way home. Part of that's going through to Dubai, where we put all the luggage under his name because he gets the unlimited amount of luggage. So all my luggage is under his name. He has to check through a different way for the staff travel. So we get separated at the airport. My phone is very, very, very low. It's about to die. And was coming to getting onto the flight. He isn't there. And I'm messaging saying, like, where are you? And my phone dies and we're boarding and he's not there. And I'm like, okay, I'm presuming he's going to be on the next flight right behind me. I know there was one going to Sydney right behind me. So he will be about an hour difference. And I've landed back in Australia. I've turned on my phone, which I've charged on the flight. Like I said, he's got all my luggage. And when I turn on my phone, there's a unknown sort of number. And it's like, hey, my dad's picking you up. And I'm like, where are you? And it's like, hey, just don't worry about it, meet dad here. And I was like, where the hell are you? And then I get a photo, a selfie of him kissing a camel. So he has stayed behind in Dubai. So in the time that I've flown home, he's decided to stay in Dubai with all my luggage, his luggage, and he's already on a safari. He's already on a safari and he's enjoying Dubai. And so he ends up staying in Dubai for another week, although he was urgently needing to get back home for work. So that's just another way of like showing how selfish this person was and how he was like, I'll make it up to you, I'll make it up to you, I'll make it up to you, I'm gonna make it up to you. Like, didn't mean to. I booked the wrong flight. And he's like, I'm coming back with the best gift for you. I'm going to the gold market. What do you want from the gold market? Mind you, this guy's never gotten me a gift. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever you want to get me. And anyways, when he does come back to home, and he comes straight to me from sort of the airport and he's like, I can't wait for you to open your gift. And the gift ended up being a pen from the airport. Just a whatever, $2 pen from the airport with a camel camel head. And he's like, I ran out of money. I used it all up, but I'll get you back. I'm going to pay for you to go to Dubai one day, which never happened. And then following from there, very shortly after, as I said, I was in my own place. I was in a financially stable, great position, still supporting him while he's building his business up. He kept saying, no, the money just needs to keep, like, he was making great money at that point, but he's like, the money needs to keep going back in the business. It can't be spent on, other things. Still didn't own a car, all that sort of stuff. He is someone who just constantly has a project or something in his mind. I need to do this. I need to buy this. I need, like I said, that roller coaster. So he then got in his head, I want this warehouse converted home. I really want this warehouse converted home. And I was not ready to buy anything with him. I didn't trust him. We're still on a bad run. It's still not good. But anyways, he's turned around and gone and purchased a very expensive property, warehouse converted, unconditional offer, and without telling me. And I remember him coming sort of back upstairs to my home, and he's like, so we sort of did something. And he's like, I bought this place. It's unconditional, so there's no way out, but you need to sell yours to finance it. And people pleasing me. I didn't know how to say no. So I've gone ahead and sold my property, and I handed every single dollar that I had to him and put towards that home. So we've gone ahead and owned this property together, which I thought would make things better. I felt maybe the dynamic was off because he was under my roof, my rules, that sort of stuff. So I was like, maybe if we're equal, things will be better and things will get better. They did not. They did not. So I wasn't working at the time. I was taking time off. I really wanted to grieve my father. And all that sort of stuff. I was doing therapy at the time, which was more just talk therapy to get the trauma out of me. And so we bought the home, which was supposed to be a bit of a do-up. And like I said, we were in a really great position for the age that we were in. And that was probably going to be maybe initially our family home together. We always spoke about marriage, but because I had been engaged before, we were never going to go down that full traditional route of being engaged, but we're already de facto, we're going to get eloped and go overseas. So he was like, how about you basically get out of my hair? I really need to work. I've got a lot of sort of big cases on. How about you go overseas with my parents and go to where he's from and go meet all the family because we're probably going to get married there, which I agreed to. So I've flown over with his parents without him to Greece, and I've gone around for the month. I don't speak a word of Greek, by the way. And went round to every single family member and sat there like the good wifey wife that I am and introduced myself to everyone and sat there while they spoke Greek and not spoke a word and did the rounds of meeting everyone and all that sort of stuff and really bonding with his parents, which to this day are very, very sweet trip because it's something I never would have done with my parents. So, and I was very, very close with his father. And to this day, I adore his father, and there's still such high respect there for both of us. But did the trip with the family and came back, and the plan was sort of like come back in 6 to 12 months' time where we'll go overseas and get married. I've come back from that trip, and he was like, so like about the getting married, like I don't like this year. I don't like that the year that it's falling in. Like it's a bad number. So how about maybe like the year after? And from there, I was just cluing in that this was just never going to stop. We're already, we're 5 years in, and I'm like, he just keeps shifting the goalposts. I have given everything. I've given all my time. I've been patient. I have fully supported him financially. I am the cook, the cleaner, the bookkeeper, I mean everything. And all he does is work, live his life, and throw crumbs of attention But I was there being the good girlfriend, just waiting for him to, make me make me the wife, thinking that would change everything. But yeah, instead he's like, how about you go back to work? Let's bring in some more income. And I really think we should upgrade the place already. Like I said, we're in massive debt as it is. We're very young at this point. So yeah, he's like, let's double what we've already bought this for, and get a bigger place. And that will be, the family home. Which I was not for that. Also in the background, he was leveraging off the property and accumulating properties in his business name, leveraging off the equity that was off that home and the position that we're in. And that was solely obviously benefiting him. I did not ask to be added onto that. And I just figured one day that's going to be the family business, and, our kids will benefit, and that's cool. And whatever's under that business name is, yeah, for the family. So the demise of the relationship, I was already getting so skinny and unwell, and I was so neglected by him. We were barely speaking and interacting. There was no dating anymore, no courting, no taking me out. I was walking on eggshells because he worked from home. I could not speak or make a noise. The dog could not speak or make a noise. I had to get out of his hair majority of the time. But, whenever he tapped me on the shoulder to have sex, I had to comply. But, had to keep the home pristine and run to his family whenever they needed me, and really was the boyfriend and the girlfriend, the daughter-in-law and the sister-in-law and the auntie and the uncle. And they called me auntie and not him uncle. That's how highly involved I was with his family. But I was losing a lot of weight and I was becoming very depressed. And I knew this was coming to an end. And I was still very much in love, but I was being so depleted in every way. And once he was trying to then buy the second property, but needed me to do that, and I again refused, or not again. Again, the only time I said no to him was I said, I won't be doing that. I won't be buying anything else. And I do not want to put myself in any more debt. And he tore me to pieces. And I still remember that day very clearly. And he just tore me to shreds, and belittled me and made me feel like absolute shit and worthless. And I brought nothing to him and I brought nothing to the table, and I'm only making him go backwards, and we're just so not aligned. And something I didn't mention is the constant threatening of breaking up was monthly, if not more. It was constantly, if you do not comply, if you upset me, I'm leaving you. If you don't give me sex, I will get sex from somewhere else. It was, I mean, now I think of it and I would never put up with that. But back then it was like, okay, 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 okay. But pleasing and pleasing, don't upset him, do whatever I need to do. But it just wore me down, and it literally it just broke my heart, that me standing there in front of him, tearing up, and him just ripping me to pieces. And I knew my heart, that was it for me. And I didn't say anything at the time. I gave it a week. I sat on it for a while, and I knew I couldn't do this anymore. And left him the week later, where he broke down and fell to his knees and cried and begged, because I actually never used the word breakup. He threatened me every month for 5 years, but I never ever did that to him ever. And so he knew I was serious, and he could feel obviously the coldness and the shut offness. And he used every tactic under the sun to get me back. But I was just so empty. I was just so empty. I was so broken. I had no hope anymore that he couldn't win me over at that point. And I left immediately. I knew he was going to suck me back. So I left him with the house and the car and everything. And I went and got a rental and moved out to give us a break. And he went between threatening me to come back to love bombing me to come back. So I was constantly getting this. He was just trying every tactic to see which one worked. Thankfully, and I do not know how I had the strength to stay strong. I was pleasing him best I could, trying not to rock the boat. Like I said, he had all my money. He had all my money. He had the house. He had all. He was the one who had the power still. So I was trying to do my best to not really piss him off, because he is a lawyer, and I knew he would screw me over one day, which is what ended up happening. But anyways, the breakup, the separation dragged on for many, many years. He, in the midst of his absolute heartache, he still was able to drag me to a lawyer's office and make me sign a post-nup agreement, if anyone has ever heard of that. So it's not a prenup, but a postnup. Same thing of showing, what each person has and whatnot, and making agreement of who's going to walk away with what. And I agreed that he can have everything. I'll just have the money that I got from my property from when I sold it. Nothing more outside of that, even though we made we made money on the house, and he went and accumulated all these other properties that made money. I said I will not touch any of it. I will just take what I came in with, but I want this wrapped up very quickly. I want this done. I want the house transferred out of my name and whatnot. And I signed the postnup. And although the lawyer who witnessed this had him step out of the room, mind you, that lawyer was his friend. That friend still had him step out of the room and let me know, this is extremely unfair and you're deserving of 50% of this. And I said, I do understand, but I just need this done and I need him out of my life. And I signed that document, and it dragged on for 3 more years after that. In that time, I tried to pretend to have a friendship and still complied in every way I could. Wasn't like really dating. I really shut myself off. The threat was, if I find out you've moved on, I'll take everything you have. And I knew he would. So it really stopped me from like moving on, but also it gave me time to sort of just not jump into anything else and, go through therapy and this sort of stuff. I got a job and started another life outside of that. But then when he did find out I was seen with a guy, then he threatened and was going to renege on everything and was going to take everything. And he stressed me out to such a point that I literally had a blood vessel pop in my eye, because I just didn't know how to move forward. And luckily, I did reach out to a friend and explain the situation, because I was still in that sort of mindset of like, you don't talk about your problems, you don't tell people what's going on. I was still trying to please his family. I wanted everyone to still love me and think the best of me and all that sort of stuff. So I went to a friend and explained the situation, and then they were like, why does he hold all this power? Surely you have something on him. And I was like, yeah, I do. He doesn't pay his taxes. And they're like, well, oh, yeah, how about you go use that? So I called him back and I said very calmly, I will give you till 5 p.m. today to transfer the home out of my house and transfer the money into my bank account, what we agreed upon, nothing more, even though I know I deserve a lot more, or else I will dob you in to the taxation office. And 5 o'clock that day, he transferred the money and didn't speak to me for a good year after that. But yeah, there was still some dragged out post breakup abuse and manipulation and constantly using the family against me. And because he knew how much I still wanted this family unity, and where we stand today is he can't stand the sight of me, but I'm still actually have contact with the family, but they keep it secret.
So you use the words there that the person that you were talking to, your friend, said what power or what's the power and control that he has over you. So we have a little bit to go here still, but because we're going to get back to your family. But what is, in your words, as far as this whole relationship goes, the power and control that he had over you, and then still in these years where this separation has occurred, this power and control that he has over you? So what would you say that is?
I would say certainly the financial pull and the financial tie, the way he merged that, although I had the power the whole time because it was my finances, yet somehow he made me think it was his and he was a smarter one and the power in this couple and the brains of this couple and that sort of stuff. And the family, he did use his family against me. He knew how much I adored them and he knew how much they adored me. And how much I really wanted that and how much it broke my heart to leave them again for the second time, leaving a family that loved me. And I remember he just kept saying after the breakup, you could have had it all. You could have had it all. You could have had it all if you didn't leave me. You would have been married by now. You would have had everything you wanted, but you just couldn't wait long enough. So he really, he guilt tripped me. So my mum, I haven't said much, but my mum guilt trips the hell out of me. So guilt tripping works very well on me with I guess the people pleasing and all that sort of stuff. I want to do the best. I don't want to upset anyone. I ride to the nth degree, to the very end. I will give it my all, and even when I do and it fails, I still will blame myself. So there is a lot of self blame at that point. Still, even after the breakup, I did not see him for fully who he was. I saw the actions he was doing, but I really played it off of he's hurt. He's hurt. I like let him on. I broke his heart, and this is how he's retaliating. I did not know this is all post that after doing work. I've understood everything he did to me was abuse. I really painted it as he just doesn't know how to self-regulate well, and I'm just his punching bag. But yeah, I really, really, really didn't know how toxic and abusive all of that was.
So this relationship has now ended. And as a whole, these are the things I've written down that you've dealt with or things that have occurred within you. And I'm sure I'm missing lots of stuff here, but I'll just go right now. Put downs. You think things are your fault. Sexual coercion. He's selfish. There's financial abuse, financial control. You have a hope that's taking you through. There's lots of people pleasing, excuses from him for his behavior, but also things that you can excuse away. After your initial breakup with him, there's grief, and then you can't handle the breakup, so you kind of get back together. That's when your dad passes away. There's a dangling carrot in this relationship. It's always in front of you. There's shifting goalposts. You're supporting him financially. You're doing the cooking and cleaning. You only get breadcrumbs of attention. There's future faking in your story. You're not allowed to make noises. Then eventually, I have written down here, your body starts to rebel against you. You get depressed. You're depleted. You also can't say no. You do everything for his family. They love you, and you love them, and that becomes a big hold on you. There's verbal abuse. He's belittling you, saying that you're bringing nothing to the table. Constant threats, breakup threats, and then love bomb to get you back. There's power dynamics at play. The post-nup agreement. You're complying so he doesn't take more in this post-abuse. There's guilt trips. You have self-blame. You have self-gaslighting. He's the truth teller in your world. You have shame for a myriad of things, and he's a victim, and you're taking the blame for everything. And I'm sure there's lots in here that I'm missing. I'm sure there's a lot that I'm missing, but that's a lot already. And this is a lot of abuse, and you've had a lifetime of abuse. And your story doesn't end here, because you're about to tell us another little bit about how your mom rejected the relationship right before it ended. So there's going to be a bit of an overlap with that. And then, tell us where you and your family stand now. So take us from here.
So backtracking, before I left this partner, my mum actually turns on him. So my mum, after losing my father, she did take him aside 3 times. So my mum does actually stay out of my business when it comes to relationships a bit. But she did take him aside 3 times after my dad died to ask him, what are your intentions with my daughter? And, will you be looking after her? So I think my mum must have just been going through sort of the thinking of, I'm next, and like, is she looked after? So there is some sort of care there somewhere in my mum's mind, I guess. And 3 times he laughed her off and said, don't worry about it. I'll make a good woman of her one day. And my mum did not like that. She's a traditional, Italian woman. And she was actually asking in all seriousness, and he jerked it off 3 times. So my mum actually turned on us, and we went to visit her one day, and she didn't open the door. And I was like, what the heck? And we left, and I called her, and she's like, I don't accept this relationship. I don't believe he has true intentions with you. I think he's playing you and dragging this on, and he's not welcome in my home anymore. And I said, well, you're not going to tell me who to love and who to pick. So I pick him, and I did. And I was not in contact with my mom for 6 months. But in that 6 months is when I was then leaning to like leaving. I just didn't want my mom to tell me to do it, I guess. So I was in no contact with my mom while the relationship was deteriorating, but I did pick him in that time. And I then left him, and then, called my mum out of the blue and said, I'm going to come and visit you. And then came to see her, and I said, look, I've left him and I'm single. And she's like, okay, I didn't want that to happen. It's not like I wished that to happen to you, but I just saw signs, and sort of sorry to hear in a way. And at that point, we're still in dealing with the post financial situation and abuse with my ex. So he, like I said, had all my money. We're going into COVID. I am being sexually harassed by my boss. That boss uses COVID basically as a excuse to get rid of me, which happens. So I lose my job. I'm then being kicked out of my apartment, which they're selling. And, I was supposed to go purchase my third property, my fourth one on my own. But my ex had my money, so I wasn't able to go ahead with that purchase. And then COVID happens. I then do the blackmailing. I get my money, but I've already lost my job, and lockdown's happening. So everything's hitting me at once. And I've never, ever, ever, ever have asked my family for anything, not in any monetary or any other support. But I felt lost and lonely and stuck. I've lost my ex. I lost my ex's family at that point because I pulled away to give it some break. And I called my mum, and I said, it's been 36 years. I've never asked for anything. When do you think you'll be able to help me out in life? So I've never mentioned she's also, or the family is very well off. We didn't live like we were well off, but the carrot was always dangled of, should you do everything right, should you follow our rules, you'll be looked after. So my brother is fully financially supported by my family. My sister's never worked, of course, ever as well. She's lived at home. My mum, of course, has never worked, lived at home. I'm the one who's sort of gone off, done her own thing, made my way separately because I didn't want them to control me financially. But here I am coming at 36 saying, do you think you could help me out? Because my brother's always got a home. He's got a home paid for by the family, all this sort of stuff. And he's living it large at this point, and I'm completely financially supporting myself. So my mum, for the first time, turned around and said, no, it's not my job to put a roof over your head and support you. Why did you go against your brother and make up lies about him? And that just broke something in my brain. For her, for the first time, actually to use the words of the abuse and then follow it with, why did you lie, just absolutely rocked me to my core. And I absolutely lost my cool. I don't even remember what I said. I completely blacked out and just lost my cool completely and hung up on her and did not speak to her for 1 year. I fell into depression. I think I possibly always had depression and that sort of stuff, but this was just something else. And it was my lowest time and my darkest time. I was suicidal. I absolutely cut myself off from everything and everyone. I couldn't function. I couldn't function. I couldn't pretend anymore at that point. I absolutely had a complete breakdown. So I had a complete mental breakdown. And yeah, just isolated myself and sort of, just at home all the time and crying. And it took actually an old work friend who reached out and said, I think something's happened to you, and I think you might be going through depression. And I really recommend that you go to the doctors and speak to them, which I was sort of really not for it because again I had this tainted, I'm broken. I just was thinking I could get through it, but I couldn't. And I did go to the doctors, and I did go on antidepressants, which honestly did really save me at that point. Something else I didn't sort of bring up was I have always had suicidal ideation and did from quite, yeah, young, tried to sort of, I don't know if you're seriously trying to kill yourself, but I unfortunately really fell into knowing that I will always have an escape. If anything ever got bad, I can get myself out of this by getting myself out of this world. Not a great way to think, not healthy, of course, but it was just me. Not, yeah, it was my escape, and that's what very severely fell into in that time, in that depression. But also then went into hardcore therapy, and I still wasn't working. So made it, yeah, my mission to get myself good. And the sort of antidepressants really just balanced my thinking and sort of got me out of that suicidal sort of thinking and that black hole, and balanced my thoughts enough that I could just, go to therapy and flip the thinking on, how do I better myself? How do I get out of this? And really what got me out of this is, I don't want them to win. And they being my mum and my brother, yeah, I didn't want everything that they had done to me to be the ending of my story and everything I had survived and achieved to end sort of that way. So yeah, went into therapy, and then I started to do my first business, which really, really, really just gave me such confidence in myself. And I was just so proud of myself. And it took off and it did really well. Knowing I could do this on my own. I was financially supporting myself. Again, I was meeting a lot of people. I was being complimented all the time. I was being reassured all the time. I was getting attention. All that, put it all together, really helped me to just become the person who I am today.
And if you had any words of wisdom for everyone listening, what would they be?
Yeah, I would say be kind to yourself and know that things that happen to you are not your fault. I would say in any situation to try and back yourself. For me, thank goodness I financially was backing myself from day one. I don't think I ever would have left any one of those relationships if I didn't feel I had the security to be able to support myself. So it doesn't matter how great you think, the person that you're with. I would say just constantly keep your independence in that way and financially back yourself, and also lean on people, lean on friends, lean on support, lean on communities, lean, like share. I wish I had spoken throughout my life and my journey, and I would have known a lot sooner that I wasn't alone, I wasn't abnormal, I wasn't stupid, and that this has happened to unfortunately many others, and they're there to help you and love you and lean on you, and you can learn trust and love by people who are outside of your family unit and that sort of stuff.
Well, Rose, I really want to thank you for being here with us today and sharing your story. And your story, is a lifelong story, and and will always be a lifelong story. And CPTSD will it's there, and it's not like it's always going to go away. You'll be able to lessen the effects of it over time, but you've been living pretty much your whole life in trauma, and not little t trauma, big T trauma, and dealing with everything. You soldiered through it all to get to where you are, to be in this healing process and shedding your skin, shedding yourself of those people that do not have your best interest at heart. And it's sad that they don't, because that's your family, and there's the grieving process of all of that. And there will be more grieving processes in the future. A lot of the times we hear that when you go no contact with certain members of your family, that's one thing. But when those family members eventually do pass away, there's that second grieving, because sometimes in the back of your mind there's hope that that could be repaired one day, and then it's not possible anymore. So you're going to be going through a lot of these different things for the rest of your life. But you came here today to share, to show people that there is another side, that you can get through it, and that someone who's capable like you can be torn down and think that you're not capable, and the power dynamics that go along with that. Then all of a sudden things aren't even, and someone can be abused, taken advantage of, conned, financially abused. And you just did a really good job today. I can't thank you enough for being here, but just a really big thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, so much, so much.
Well, thank you, Rose, once again for being our guest today. And if you want to be a guest like Rose was today, go to our website at narcissistapocalypse.com, click on the guest form at the top of the page, or send us an email at narcissistapocalypse@pm.me. And if you want to join our newsletter, also at our website, narcissistapocalypse.com, you can either do a pop-up that's going to pop up probably within 10 seconds of being on the website, or on the side, you'll be able to see that there is a newsletter sign up. So join our newsletter today. You get a free workbook from this episode, and all future episodes, you'll get a free workbook to work on. Everyone says it's a valuable tool. And that is it for today's episode with Rose. So for myself and Rose, we hope you have a good night.